Hey guys, Thomas the Jr. here, aka Mustached. Here to review Dark Tower. Now, before reviewing this, I did see one or two reviews, some negative, some positive, so I went in kind of not knowing what to expect, started going in half and half. I did know going in beforehand that this is based on one of Stephen King's novels. I don't believe I've read this one, Dark Tower. I don't know. I haven't read Stephen King's works in quite a while, so I am going into this just knowing the movie, and that is what I'm going to be reviewing. So, with that in mind, we get this kid named Jake, who seems like a regular kid who gets tendencies to get picked on, and before that we see that he's having these visions of this, well, the Dark Tower. So we can assume that this was some sort of dream or vision. So he tries to say that everything's alright, and we see this picture frame of his dad, which quickly establishes, with the way it's shot, that his father is dead, and he has a stepfather at this point. So he goes to visit the shrink, who talks to him about his art. He's really good at art, apparently. He draws all the pictures he's seen in the dream, puts them on the paper, puts them on his walls. Then he meets with this bully, as I kind of rushed into talking about before I mentioned all the stuff that happened prior, but he beats the bully down before the bully can essentially do anything more. So he talks to the psychologist, I think, afterwards, or before that, and goes back. Anyways, the doc says the excuse of why this is happening is because of the whole his dad being dead thing. Anyways, as the kid's going from that place back home, he sees this stranger essentially just walk up to him and warn him after he sees this weird person who has like cracks in his skin, some sort of robot with fake skin or something with fake skin. They never really say what they are, unfortunately. There are a few other terms that are in this movie, but I'll get to that briefly. Anyways, the mom kind of gets put into the situation where she believes that he needs to go to this special school. And then we get introduced to Matthew McConaughey's character, whose name I actually don't remember, and I didn't take notes on his name. I didn't hear it in the movie, so I'm just going to call him Matt for short, Matt the bad guy. So anyways, we see him essentially burn this guy, and we then see our hero of the movie named Roland, who's also referred to as a gunslinger. This is a term that the kid uses for Roland throughout the movie. And then we see that from there, Jake notices a few more of these, I guess, robots. I guess I'll just refer to them as robots. The two adults that come to his house, essentially, who are trying to take him to this special school, are these robots. He notices the little cracks on the neck, so he decides to flee. He starts running from house to house, gets out of the building, and ends up walking towards this house. He saw from the vision. Ends up sort of getting there through lock-in to move the plot along, of course. So he moves inside the house, and the house, I guess, comes alive. This moment was a little bit confusing in the movie. It didn't really add up to much, except for like one other thing that happens in the movie. So it does have some setup, but the building coming alive itself, or whatever it was doing, was a bit just odd, and I didn't really understand why that was happening. Anyways, the kid, Jake, opens up this portal, and then he goes through the portal, which does lead to some odd choice of dialogue a little bit later on in the movie. So, anyways, we see Matt doing his coming back through a portal. He gets some info from his little team that he keeps killing throughout the movie. So, for whatever reason, they just keep working for him because they're just henchmen and they just, I guess, fear him and whatever. Anyways, he gets Jake ends up bumping into Roland, and they have this whole the Roland character doesn't trust the kid, and then the kid tries to keep telling him about the pictures, and then he mentions the man in black, and then that sort of gets him Roland to accept this kid's help in order to find this sort of building where Matt's character is essentially held up and trying to his base of operations, essentially. So, anyways, we get to see some more of Matt's power at some point. And, I actually wrote this note later. Matt's character, I did hear it once, so I made sure to write it down because I didn't hear his name any other time in the movie. His name was Walter. So there we go. Anyways, this lady in this town that they, or I think this lady mentioned something. I don't remember. I wrote that note that she mentions the Sayers or something like that. And then Jake sees some more robots, and then he's like running some more. Anyways, he asked about the war, that because he gets to spend some time with Roland, and what these like robot things are. And then we see Matt see the two, or I should say, Walter see the two robots that had failed him prior, the ones that went to Jake's house. So he tells them to kill each other. So he's doing more of that. Meanwhile, Jake hears this voice, and essentially he gets closer and closer to Walter, but Roland eventually stops him and gets him out of that trick. So Jake runs some more before almost grabbing the gun, and then they take down this tree beast thing, or I should say Roland does that. So anyways, we cut back to the mom of Jake, who's seeing these pictures of, as Walter is taking this sort of like vision thing, I guess, with her. And then he essentially tells the stepdad to also stop breathing so he dies. But then it decides to cut away as if we wouldn't know or wouldn't catch on that he would not kill the mother. I thought this cut was so bizarre considering that he had killed everyone else prior, but then they would cut for the mom as if to almost suggest that maybe she could be alive. I don't know. It seems kind of dumb, kind of pointless, because we all knew that was coming at that point, or at least I did. So pretty predictable on that point. And as far as mentioning weird build-ups, I mentioned before that Jake saw the vision about the tower, but then he goes on asking about it later as if he didn't know. It was a bit odd of placement, I suppose. Anyways, so we have this pretty good music build-up, and then it leads to that cut I talked about. So, Matthew McConaughey does a pretty good job in that moment, at any rate, besides the weird bad cut. So anyways, Jake and Mr. Gunman, or Roland, end up in this little town camp place where they get to see this seer, this woman, who eventually tells them where to go. And again, they bring up this gunslinger thing a bit more here, and how the people there don't see him as that anymore, and the kid still has faith in him. So anyways, we get more dialogue about how Jake can see other worlds besides his, which would make sense. We saw that in the beginning, how he's seeing this world essentially. And then the part I mentioned comes up where he asks about the portals. Like, he's like, portals? And I was like, well, yeah, you went through a portal to get to that place you're in right now. Hello? Anyways, stupidity aside, Roland, we discover, is this given up man who's bent on revenge. And then we get another odd cut of Jake asking if Roland is okay. And then the place gets the little camp that they're in gets placed under attack by these robot monster things or whatever they are. I don't know. So, meanwhile, we get this whole nonsense about Roland's gun being made from Excalibur or something, and I was like waiting to get some sort of reasoning behind this, like why would his gun need to be made from Excalibur, but they never explain it. His gun is just awesome. Hey, we didn't need that little bit of info, but it's there, I guess. Anyways, Jake is hopeless yet again, so he gets grabbed. So Roland uses his super good hearing, which is a skill we just saw suddenly get him to see, and he's able to pick up where the kid is and where this creature that grabbed him is, and then he shoots the creature. The kid comes back to him, and they go through another portal and end up back in the human world, which is the first time I believe Roland ended up there, so he's a little bit confused. He ends up in a hospital, and then he denies the help. So it's a pretty... I think the scene was more so for comical sake, I guess, because they... I don't know. Anyways. So Matthew McConaughey's... Matthew's character... gosh, I keep forgetting his name. Even... Walter, sorry. Visits the seer and then kills her. And then some other guy, essentially, after getting the info that he needs. So anyways, they end up in the human world, blah blah blah. So anyways, the kid ends up returning home at some point, and then he sees that his stepdad is dead, and then he sees his mom is dead, and then he has a pretty good moment. So the kid is... he has a pretty okay moment in this movie, too. For whatever reason, the kid now loses hope in the gunslinger known as Roland in this slow moment of whateverness. So anyways, the gunslinger decides to help him out and show him how to shoot, even though that is kind of pointless, because we never see the kid ever shoot again after this point, so... whoops! Missed opportunity there. Anyways... some more of these alien monster creature guys, I don't even know what they are, hold back Roland some more, after Jake is kidnapped, because they end up in some building where they get guns, and then what happens is Matt's character comes via like mind trick and then tricks Roland into going into an attack, which gets them separated. The kid gets separated, he has to run, he ends up running right into the trap, gets kidnapped, and then we get to see Roland get some telepathy from the kid, and then he knows the location from that, I guess. So he leaps toward the action, and it suddenly turns into this like video game action sequence where he takes out a whole bunch of bad guys who are just under Walter's reign, or is just his henchmen, I guess. So we get a very video game action scene, essentially, and we knew, because of the visions we saw from the seer, that the tower would start to get hit a little bit, because we saw that in the vision, so we kind of knew that this was going to happen, whether something was going to lead to this, so we know that was going to happen. So it is a little bit of a spoiler before getting the actual thing kind of movie, unfortunately, but it's not that bad, I guess. It is more of an action movie, through and through. Anyways, after that, we see Matthew's character, Walter, there we go, I finally got it, face off against Roland. So, Walter holds his own using his magical capabilities, and we're put through another moment where we assume that Roland's gonna hit his low moment, but then the kid remembers the mantra that the gunslinger Roland taught him, so the kid starts like mind saying it to Roland, which gives him the I gotta believe moment in the movie. So he picks up his gun, he shoots, Walter gets ready to block, he shoots another bullet into that bullet, knocking the first bullet further to the right, kind of like in a Wanted moment without the actual, like, slinging of the bullet. It's like shooting a bullet into another bullet, causing it to, I guess, I wouldn't say ricochet, but it causes it to alter its course and hit him in another location where he wasn't expecting, causing him to be thrown off long enough for Roland the gunslinger to take him down. So after they do that, and after Roland decides to destroy the rest of this little base of theirs, they return to the human world very briefly, and then Roland suggests that he wants Jake to go back with him into that world since he has nothing left except, his friend, because that was in the movie. But, he has nothing left, apparently. But he's there to become a gunslinger. And that's the end of the movie, which almost seems like a setup to a sequel to a movie. But I don't know how well this movie did, but it was okay. It did obviously have its flaws. Some of its moments later on get a little bit odd. Some of the dialogue, as I mentioned, is a little bit odd. But the acting is pretty solid, and the action's okay as it moves toward the end. I would have hoped to have seen the kid do a bit more toward the end to sort of further suggest that he is already becoming a gunslinger. Perhaps him shoot something rather than just a can. Other than that, it's an okay movie. I would give it a 6 out of 10. So with that being said, if you enjoyed this review, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, everyone, bye!